A dimly lit, out-of-the-way back booth in an anonymous pub. The air is thick with the scent of aged wood and rain. A large, well-worn map of Central Europe is spread out on the table. 3 half-empty tumblers of amber liquid sit nearby. 3 men sit around the table. Jason Bourne wears a plain, dark jacket. He constantly scans the room in quick, efficient glances. Robert McCall is immaculately dressed in a bespoke suit, calm and upright. His hands are folded neatly on the table, a picture of quiet authority. John Wick wears his signature dark suit. His body language is coiled, but his gaze is distant, focused inward. The silence is heavy, broken only by the distant murmur of pub patrons. Bourne takes the lead, his question directed at no one in particular. Bourne.
It all comes down to control, doesn't it? That's what they sell you. The illusion that if you follow their rules, if you become their perfect weapon, you have a purpose. A path.
McCall.
An illusion is a powerful thing, Jason. Especially when it offers clarity. I found a different kind of clarity. A moral compass.
Wick.
Clarity is expensive. It costs you everything you had before.
Bourne.
You embraced it, John. The high table. The rules. The contracts. You were a part of that structure.
No. I followed the rules to survive the system until I could get out. The organization is a necessary evil, a firebreak to keep the chaos contained. But my purpose was always singular, Helen. Be quiet. The life, not the work.
McCall.
And when the chaos comes for the quiet, Mr. Wick, when the fire jumps the break, you don't have the luxury of turning your back on skill. The talent to restore balance, it becomes a debt you have to pay.
Wick takes a slow sip of his drink, his eyes dark. Wick?
It wasn't about balance for me. It was retribution. Justice is a clean word for a messy business. Vengeance is honest. They took the last piece of my piece. I took everything back.
Bourne.
Vengeance is a cycle. A wire you run on. You can't get off until the wire is cut. My fight was to cut the wire. To dismantle the people who decided they had the right to own me. To find the truth so I could finally know who I was, if only to reject what they made me.
And what did you find, Jason? A man who can kill with his bare hands, no matter the name on his passport. You're not defined by their lies. You're defined by your capabilities. The difference is what you choose to do with them. My philosophy is simple. Do the right thing. If someone can't defend themselves and their rights have been violated, I become their equalizer. I use my skills for those who have no control left.
You sound like a missionary with a hammer. You believe in a pure form of good and evil. I believe in systems. Corrupt ones, messy ones. The world is shades of grey, Robert. When you target a man, you target his whole network. You never know whose life you've destabilized by your moral certainty.
I'm not certain of the outcome, only the intent. I measure the weight of the injustice. If the balance is tipped to tyranny, exploitation, or abuse, it must be corrected. I don't care about the system. I care about the individual's dignity. It's not about vengeance. It's about being a temporary shepherd.
The shepherd gets shot. You talk about dignity, Robert. I talk about consequence. The world we live in respects one thing, power. And power is demonstrated through unwavering consequence. When I moved against the high table, it was to prove that there is a line, and crossing it costs everything. They respect that. It's their only language.
Bourne leans in, hands flat on the map.
So we all come down to a common ground. Violence is the final language. But you, Robert, you're trying to redeem yourself through it. John, you're trying to burn your way back to a past you can't have. Me? I just wanted to know who was pulling the strings. Because if you don't know that, you're still a tool.
A rare, sudden smile touches McCall's lips.
I've already been redeemed. What I do now is maintenance. My work is not a penance, it's a privilege. I am free. And freedom, for me, comes with obligation.
Freedom is a quiet room. It's walking away and no one follows. The only philosophy I ever truly believed in was being able to walk away. When they force you back, the rest is just professional courtesy.
Bourne nods slowly, looking from McCall's confident posture to Wick's haunted intensity.
So, a righteous cleaner, an honorable debt collector, and a man trying to delete his past. We all share one burden, though we can never really stop seeing the angles, calculating the threat. The quiet room, John, is a nice idea. But the ghosts, they still know your address.
Bourne picks up his drink, his eyes going back to the rain-streaked window.
And the world always needs someone to solve its problems with extreme prejudice. That's the real philosophy we all understand.
A new presence slides into the booth. Batman, Bruce Wayne, is not wearing the cowl, but his black, tailored suit and intense gravity are unmistakable. He moves with the same practiced silence as the others.
You've discussed philosophy, but you've ignored the most critical question, restraint. The line that separates you from the monsters you fight.
The three men turn to regard him. Bourne is instantly calculating. McCall is calm but assessing, and Wick is simply still.
You're too visible. And you speak of restraint from a position of unchecked wealth and technology. That's a different kind of power.
Power is irrelevant. I have the capability to end any threat permanently. But I refuse. My entire methodology is built on a single, unwavering rule. I will not kill. If you cross that line, what are you but another instrument of the very violence you claim to be fighting?
McCall considers this, his expression thoughtful.
I admire the discipline, Mr. Wayne. It takes tremendous control. But it is an impractical philosophy in a world that doesn't share your rules. Sometimes, the only way to prevent 5 deaths tomorrow is to prevent 1 tonight. Your refusal to act decisively can be a form of complicity in the greater suffering. Restraint can breed chaos.
Wick shifts slightly, leaning forward.
The difference between us, Batman, is the context of our work. You fight crime, a sickness in the system. I deal with consequence. A bullet is a permanent, simple end to a complex problem. You leave them breathing so they can learn. I leave them dead so they can't return. It's not morality, it's finality.
Finality is the easy way out. It's an abdication of responsibility. My fight is to prove that redemption is possible, even for the worst of humanity, or failing that the system of justice is strong enough to contain them. If I kill, I become the judge, jury, and executioner. I forfeit the moral authority to demand a civilized society.
Moral authority is a theory. Survival is a fact. The governments and agencies that created me, they don't care about justice or redemption. They only care about assets and liabilities. If a target is too dangerous, they eliminate them. The line you hold is your personal code, not a universal truth. You maintain it because you have the safety net of $1 billion infrastructure and a clean conscience.
McCall, gesturing to Bourne and Wick.
Jason hunts the puppet masters. John operates in the shadow economy. They deal with people who exist outside the law, whose violence is institutional. You, Mr. Wayne, operate within the law's shadow. The people you fight are theoretically reclaimable. That's the difference. We deal with terminal threats.
And by declaring a threat terminal, you justify your actions. You make the choice. That's the critical step. I choose to believe in a path back. I choose to believe that the justice system, however flawed, is preferable to my own arbitrary judgment. My war isn't just with criminals, it's with the temptation of ultimate control. The moment I kill is the moment I become the problem I'm fighting.
Wick looks at Bruce for a long, quiet moment.
You fight for a city, Bruce. You fight for an idea. I only ever fought for peace. The kind of peace where no one bothers you. Sometimes, to get that, you have to burn down the whole forest. And I promise you, the fire. It always cleanses.
Bourne, meeting Batman's gaze.
We are all weapons, Bruce. You just put on a more expensive camouflage. You're chasing shadows, hoping to heal the system. We're cutting the heads off the snakes. We're defined by the efficiency of our methods. You are defined by the inefficiency of your conscience.
The pub falls silent again. The four men, each a master of violence, stare at the conflict inherent in their chosen paths.
So your true philosophy is that the end always justifies the means.
No. My philosophy is that innocence must be protected. And sometimes, the only means available to a man like me is the sword.
My philosophy is leave me alone. Everything else is just business.
And mine is know your enemy. If you don't know who they are, they win. And sometimes, knowing them means becoming them, just for a moment.
Bruce Wayne sits back, his expression unreadable, letting their cold, hard truths hang in the air.
What line, then, is truly worth dying for?
Bruce Wayne lets the silence stretch, forcing the others to confront their own answers. Bourne, tracing a border on the map.
Dying for a line. That suggests I have a line to defend. I spent years trying to find out what my line was. All I knew was the one they forced me across. My mistake wasn't the violence, it was trusting that the structure mattered. That finding the truth would fix the hole inside. It didn't. It just gave me a new mission.
The hole stays. It just gets bigger if you feed it. I truly believed that if I stepped away, if I loved Helen, that the man they called Baba Yaga would disappear. He didn't. He was just dormant. My greatest mistake was believing I could cheat the consequences of my nature. You can't integrate someone else's perspective into that, Bourne. The quiet is the goal, but the monster is the tool.
John, you mistake a tool for the hand that wields it. The monster serves you. It does not define you. My mistake was the years I spent believing I could simply retire that hand, that I could ignore the suffering around me just because I had achieved my own peace. A skilled man who sees injustice and does nothing is morally bankrupt. That was my error. My integration now is realizing that my peace is conditional upon the peace of others.
That's where we diverge, Robert. You use the sword. I use the shield. I recognize the necessity of your perspective that sometimes a lethal response is the only effective deterrent to a terminal threat. But I must hold to the ideal, even if it's impractical. My personal introspection acknowledges that my focus on Gotham can be parochial. Bourne's perspective that the systemic corruption is the true weapon is something I need to integrate.
The infrastructure of evil is often more damaging than the individual criminal.
You're close, Bruce. But the system is too large for your bat-themed efficiency. It requires a different perspective. John's. The people pulling those strings? They don't respect shields, only unpredictable, catastrophic disruption. They need to fear the consequences of being seen. That fear is what stops them, not an arrest.
Wick, a nod of acknowledgement.
Fear is a reliable foundation. But I also see the value in McCall's approach. When I went for my piece, I was blind to the collateral damage. Robert fights for the innocents caught in the wake. He uses his expertise for repair, not just retribution. That is a kind of discipline I never had time for. My actions are always self-focused, restoring my balance. His are about restoring the scale itself.
And yours, Mr. Wick, is a lesson in commitment. When I act, there is occasionally a moment of doubt, of calculation. You do not waver. You commit to the threat's annihilation. For a true equalizer, that absolute commitment is sometimes the only way to send the unmistakable message needed to protect the vulnerable. No second chances.
The line is drawn at that commitment, Robert. If I were to integrate Wick's method, I would be unstoppable, but I would sacrifice the very principle I fight for. I can only integrate Bourne's discipline, the cold, exhaustive pursuit of the controlling element. To be less reactive and more strategic in targeting the source of the corruption, not just its manifestation in the streets.
Bourne, shoulders easing fractionally.
Your restraint, Bruce, is a luxury. But it's also a lighthouse. It proves that control can be internal. That the rage and the training don't have to drive the action. They can be channeled. My mistake was letting the impulse to destroy what created me become the only metric for success. Perhaps I should integrate Robert's clarity, a focus on defending a simple, demonstrable good, not just tearing down a complex, hidden evil.
A noble goal, Jason. It allows the man to reclaim the weapon. We are all bound by our skills, but we are defined by our choice of target. If we choose to target injustice systemic or individual and commit to the necessary action, then the past is a lesson, not a sentence.
Wick slowly lifts his tumbler to the others.
You can't walk away from what you are, but maybe you can choose where you stop walking.
The conversation settles, the four men finding a stark, temporary equilibrium.
Is that integration merely theoretical, or can such heavyweights ever truly share a road?
A new shadow falls over the table. Admiral Osmand, Commander-in-Chief of the Office of Naval Intelligence, stands at the edge of the booth. She wears a perfectly tailored dark blue military uniform. Her presence is coldly cerebral, carrying the weight of star systems. She looks at the map, then at the four men, her eyes lingering on Bourne and Wick.
I wasn't expecting an advisory council of extra-legal assets. You speak of mistakes, Mr. Bourne. Mr. Wick, Mr. McCall. You speak of lines, Mr. Wayne. All very neat. You're discussing the philosophy of the blade. I am the philosophy of the fleet.
Bourne's posture instantly changes. She represents the apex of the structure he hates.
A fleet is a heavy instrument. It creates too much wake. You deal in necessary evils. I deal in the truth of the collateral damage.
The collateral damage of a single life, Jason, is a tragedy. The collateral damage of species-level extinction is a statistic I cannot allow. My philosophy is singular. The survival of the state is the supreme moral good. My mistake, historically, has been allowing sentiment to blind the methodology. My predecessor understood that sometimes you must create a lesser monster to fight a greater one.
That's how the cycle begins, Admiral. By granting yourself the right to define the lesser monster. Who gives you that authority? A military council hundreds of light years away, divorced from the human cost?
Authority is taken, Mr. Wayne, and the cost is calculated down to the last digit. You speak of redemption for criminals, I speak of containment for cosmic threats. Your street thugs or even Mr. Wick's assassins are merely internal friction. We operate on a scale where the only thing that matters is the preservation of the human seed. If that requires black files, disposable assets, and total moral compromise, then that is the price of existence.
McCall, challenged by her cold calculus.
You are creating a tyranny of scale. By claiming that the scope of your threat justifies any means, you forfeit the humanity you claim to be saving. My internal struggle acknowledges that lethal force is a necessity, but it is always applied to restore individual dignity. You crush it for the good of the majority.
Dignity doesn't run a civilization, Admiral. Data does. And fear. Mr. Wick, you understand fear. It is the most reliable currency. Your mistake was personalizing your retribution. If you had applied that level of commitment to stabilizing the shadow economy that funds the threats to the system, your efficiency would be legendary.
Wick, like reading a dangerous dossier.
Efficiency without a personal line is madness. You have no quiet room. You have no end goal except continuation. That makes you a machine, not a human. A machine that can be turned against its creator.
I choose to be the machine. Bourne chose to destroy the machine that owned him. That's a luxury I don't afford myself. To integrate your perspectives, I see this, from Bourne, the absolute necessity of knowing the source of corruption. We do that exhaustively. From McCall, the value of personal initiative in the face of bureaucratic paralysis. Sometimes, a scalpel is better than a fleet. From Wick, the effectiveness of unwavering consequence to create systemic fear.
She looks directly at Batman.
And from you, Mr. Wayne, your philosophy is the most wasteful. Restraint is an infection in my system. I look at your vast resources, your genius, and your ethical anchor, and I see a powerful tool that has consciously handicapped itself. You have integrated idealism into a practical reality that demands brutality.
I'm not a tool for your survival, Admiral. I am the proof that survival doesn't have to mean capitulation to amorality. My line is my humanity. And if humanity has to shed its soul to survive, then what is left to save? That is my line worth dying for.
Admiral Osmand gives a cold, thin smile.
The survival of the children is what's left, Mr. Wayne, not the philosophical purity of their fathers. Now I have black ops to run, or a parasitic flood will wipe out a sector. She looks at Bourne. You are a ghost of a failed program. I run a successful one. The only difference between us is that I still believe the end justifies the creation.
Osmand turns and walks away. Her presence leaves behind a stark, cold void, the silence of endless space and necessary secrets. Bourne quietly to the others.
You see the enemy? That's the system. It swallows morality and calls it duty.
Her philosophy is the most terrifying because it's the most logical. She removed the human equation entirely.
Wick, running a hand over his jaw.
The price of her quiet room is a galaxy of corpses. I prefer the honest mess of my own making.
Logic without ethics is the definition of a monster, Robert. And she is the ultimate one. Our paths, as messy as they are a necessary rebellion against that kind of absolute control. What happens when her greater good requires eliminating one of us?